Hello and welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live and I'm Cyril Stober. Now, Nigeria has over 90 irrigation schemes spread in 26 states of the Federation. Irrigation farming was one of the factors for setting up dams like the Tiga Dam in Kano State to extend the growing season for food sufficiency and export. Our irrigated agricultural system, many say, not only boosts food production and provides job opportunities, but also acts as buffer to the impact of drought, where it can draw on groundwater or stored surface water or a mixture of both. Irrigation farming has been of tremendous value for many countries in arid lands like Israel. Now, what is the present direction or mechanism in place to revamp irrigation farming, especially over speculations of many dysfunctional irrigation schemes from past projects scattered around the country? Where are we with integrated irrigation and aquaculture, and how well has the national irrigation policy been implemented? And in the light of envisaged bumper harvest, what is the government's intervention to guarantee food security? Now, these are some of the questions we'll be asking tonight, and hopefully we'll get some answers. But first, let's get to see this report by Musa Baba Aliyu.
The geographical location of Nigeria makes it suitable for the production of different types of crops all year round. Though agriculture in the country is mainly rainfed and basically dependent on the vagaries of weather, especially rainfall, dry season farming also plays significant impact.
In different little villages on their farmlands, it may not be very easy, but we will achieve a good part of it, because the river basins are handing land over to us, and they have nearly 3-4 million hectares of land near some of the large dams. We think we can achieve it by mobilizing the young farmers who are coming into clusters. 3,000-4,000 hectares, young men or women have 2 hectares each. There you can teach them things, give them resources, have harvesters, tractors to hire, and processing and what have you. And then we can achieve what the Europeans call traceability. Where is this crop from? What fertilizer was used? What chemical was applied?
We saw so many of the farmers pumping waters into their farms. But at that time, we realized that it was actually quite expensive for them to afford the cost of petrol. Today, you have a solar solution where the farmers don't need to go buy pumps, where they don't need to go buy petrol. All they need to do is to work together as a cluster, as a cooperative, and then in that local government or in that community, they have a solar-powered borehole that will pump water into all their farms.
In November last year, President Muhammadu Buhari flagged off dry season farming activities with the launch of 20 billion naira loan facility to farmers. The farmers said they await more support for the 2016-2017 dry season farming activities.
Get through, your name will be on screen, and that means your call has been passed through. And once you see your name on screen, just go ahead with a question or comment. And don't bother too much about the greetings, just go straight to the point. And I guess we'll be willing to address such issues as you might raise. So once again, welcome to NTA Tuesday Live. Let's begin to examine our topic today. And we start off by looking at developing irrigation for job creation and food security. And that is key to our discussion tonight. And let's turn to the Director of Irrigation and Drainage at the Federal Ministry of Water Resources to give us an insight into where we are now in terms of that.
Okay, in Nigeria for now, we have capacity to develop. We have about 3.14 billion hectares of land that can be developed, And so far, we have fully developed about 130,000 hectares. Out of these 130 hectares, about 70 hectares are currently in use. That is where we are as at today. But then we have a program to progressively develop on that. We have a roadmap in the ministry where we we are targeting to develop about 500,000 hectares by year 2030. And then we went further to develop a strategic plan, which will span from next year to 2020, and we hope to add additional 100,000 hectares of irrigated agriculture. That is, what we tend to do. We have developed our detailed plans on how to achieve this.
Okay, and this is spanned over a number of years, because I just wonder, 130,000 right now. I'm thinking, how long did it take us to get to 130,000? And looking at what you actually have that you can attain, 3.1.
The arable land altogether is 3.14 million hectares. And that is what is possible to develop in Nigeria.
All right, but we have done only just 130,000 hectares.
Yes. And it's because of the federal government interest.
That's small, isn't that?
Yes, but with the focus of the government in agriculture, and that is where we are looking at developing additional 100,000 in the next 4 years.
Okay, maybe we should just go straight to the next issue and say, what are the challenges that are standing in the way of, improving on this in a shorter period of time?
The major challenge is, the major challenge is finance, to be able to finance, because it's capital intensive. But then the new policy we have, is now encouraging, private enterprises from, in coming into agriculture, into irrigation development. And that is why we are hoping that, among this, within these 100,000 hectares we are hoping to develop, the private sector certainly will have to come in to participate, because they
can cultivate using residual water from such floods, which is also additional, and have a huge volume of that. I remember in the Benue Valley, you can boast of up to 20 to 30,000 hectares, or even more along the Benue. Niger has the same thing. So the water comes in terms of flood, and then as it recedes, nutrients are deposited, and residual moisture can be used. So that is the one that is natural. But on the whole, we have a huge volume of water to cultivate or to irrigate the amount of prepared land right now. But in projection, because the federal government is intending to have agriculture as a mainstay, together with solid minerals or mineral development, both agriculture and mineral development requires a lot of water. Do we have enough water to sustain this for a long time, 30, 40 years? These are some of the things we're trying to find out. Do we have enough water stored? Do we have the capacity to construct such dams or reservoirs to store water that we can manage or that we can control? These are things we are doing. And incidentally, some of the dams we constructed for these purposes over the years have sedimented, silted, and a lot of the dams in the far north are 30 to 35% silted. What it means is the active capacity of the dam, for which certain projects are meant, has been reduced by 30%. So if the reservoir, the water in the reservoir is meant for several purposes, you have to reduce the purpose intention by at least 30%. As I speak, some of our engineers are in one of the dams in the north trying to find, we call it bathymetric survey, to find the amount of siltation in the dams. So if you have a huge irrigation project attached to such dams at time of construction, you have to think twice now. Only 30% of the water has been impounded or is capable of being impounded. So we have to work and see how we meet the federal government policy for a long time. Now that is one. Secondly, if we have a water-intensive industry other than agriculture, it is going to share from the available water. Are we thinking about that? Do we have enough water to share for agriculture as well as mineral exploration and other intensive industries, the water-intensive industries? So these are things that our institute is trying to work out and then come out with at least a record that the government can use in projection. So
What would you say led to the situation that many of the dams ended up being silted and being at 30% of their capacity?
well, it's natural. First of all, your watershed environment, the practices. If agriculture is the main practice in areas, they're tilled, the land is tilled. When the rains come, they just derive the detritus. They just pack all the sediments into the river channels and they're transported into the reservoir and they're stored there. So it happens and it's normal. So what we can do is the design of some of our dams now must take into consideration some of these activities. For as long as there's rain. And in Nigeria, fortunately, we know where most of our rivers derive their waters from. The drainage we show in the north, the highlands in Kano and Jos Plateau. On the eastern side there, we have the Udi Hill, Udi Plateau there, the Cameroon Mountains as well, and then the Massive in the west. They are the ones that control our drainage. So as it rains and the watershed environments are tilled, that's in terms of agriculture, sediments are also derived and transported down. It's everywhere, it's not only in Nigeria.
Okay, well, we'll return to that. Still raise a number of issues, but let's draw from the models put forward by international agencies such as IFAD and the FAO. And here, let's come to Atsuko Toda, who's been the IFAD country representative here. What are the models that you have put across, particularly for Nigeria, seeing the blueprint of our dams and irrigation projects which have been set across?
Thank you very much. Actually, the International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD, we've been working through our projects, namely the Value Chain Development Program, the Rural Finance Institution Building Program, RUFIN. In some of the models that we have developed is to really start supporting farmers' organizations to work in areas where there is water, where there are dams, and also to support in areas where they need shallow wells, for example. So we've been training these farmers, and for us, what's very important is that we develop jobs, we increase their income, so we link them to markets, to off-takers. So what's very important is that they see the economics of doing dry season agriculture. So, for example, what we are projecting in the Value Chain Development Program is we are trying to reach around 5,000 hectares through these farmers' organizations. And we're working in areas where traditionally dry season agriculture is not that popular. So, for example, in Anambra and Benue, they see that production is higher in dry season for paddy. They're also getting better prices. And as you were mentioning, there is perhaps a bumper this year in productivity. So we're really seeing how we can link that to markets, link that to off-takers, so that more farmers can get better price and more production in these areas.
Okay, that's under the Value Chain Program, but we'll return to that in a moment. Let's find out the position, the place of the river basins in all of this. And if we go back a few years ago, we'd find that the kind of attention that the river basins had, the role they played, is not exactly the same now. What has happened over the years?
Thank you very much. Like some of my colleagues said, in the 80s, when river basin was river basin then, that was the period we had a lot of activities going on. And that was the period that the government, the policy of government gives the river basin all the enabling resources to go into real agriculture, that we are talking of integrated agriculture. And along the line, when there was a policy change, the issue of, the river basin was, the issue of direct production was removed from the river basin. And only river basin was now limited to development of both ground and surface water for irrigation and other activities. But with the present government coming in now, the emphasis has changed. because river basin is the closest to the grassroots. And the resources, to develop these resources is a serious parastatus of the ministry that is charged with developing these resources. And being closer to the grassroots, we know what the grassroots wants. And like it was mentioned, some of the dams that were constructed some years back, the dams were there and the irrigation infrastructures, that downstream development was not done. It's now that we are thinking seriously on putting in place some of those infrastructure, because we know that with irrigated agriculture, there are a lot of things that can be achieved, like youth empowerment, food security, because irrigation is the answer to some of those things. And the river basin, they are in better position to give all those activities, because that's what we were doing in the past.
Obviously, you've lost a lot of ground owing to the change in policy, and so you might be described as being in a situation where you're almost starting off from the basics once again. How can you fast track?
With the coming of this government, yeah, and the Honorable Minister, he set up a committee to reposition the river basin. And he gathered some experts who have been experts in river basin, those former MDs. They sat down to look at the policy issues. They sat down to look at what are the key issues that need to be addressed to reposition the river basin. And in doing that, we discovered that there are a lot of equipment that is required for river basin to be able to do what they were doing in the past. Because during the period of the so-denowned water access of the river basin, and because of that, most of the equipment required for the construction of and maintenance of some of our irrigation schemes, they were sold, and those that were not sold, they are now obsolete. But thank God, with the coming of this government, all these issues are the issues that have been put in place, and with that, we believe that the river basin, they have what it takes, and they are going to, given the enabling environment, they will be able to
for most of our schemes, where you have a electromechanical component, has been a problem in the past. Basically because of the running costs. You know, you have to buy diesel, and many schemes failed because of that. So we're now thinking of deploying solar energy, renewable energy, to power some of our schemes. And the information we have, the data we have, is quite encouraging. So if we have, with the enormous hectarage you can cover within the Niger Valley, where you don't need any impoundments, is basically, as Dr. Daniel said, you harness both the surface water directly from the Niger, Benue, and then the one stored by the shallow aquifer. The shallow aquifer is, where you can,
at the maintenance in those areas,
yes.
And for the rural farmers to be conversant with such basic technologies, as you might say.
Yes, yeah. In the private sector, participation in irrigation, is likely in that area. Take for instance, a private investor will provide services to the local farmers. Services like providing the maintenance schemes, telling them how to maintain the schemes, and then giving them proper agricultural extension services so that they will produce optimally. And these are the services they put, and then giving
them. Toda. Many times people say when such international agencies as yours develop schemes, they tend to overlook an important aspect of it, and that is the communities or the countries where these schemes are taken to, owning them. And You say it's a case in point is the agricultural, the river basin development authorities, which enjoyed massive support. And at one point in time, that financial support was withdrawn, and the countries had not taken control.
Maintenance. We have to ensure that those mechanisms are imbibed by the communities and the local governments. And I believe with regards to, for example, the ministries, the river basin authorities, where we invest, what's very important is that there is ownership, there is sustainability. And in this country, there is a major issue with regards to sustainability of interventions. And that is critical. That is absolutely critical, that we ensure that lessons learned, activities, the ministries where we build the capacities, where we support. For example, we work very closely with the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. We are working to...
This country, Nigeria, the geographic area Nigeria, has one of the best drainages you can find in any part of the world. We have two main rivers that drain Nigeria like a funnel and down. We have that natural endowment. All we need to do is to harness this water. And we must harness them by damming them, even in small scale. All the tributaries, a lot of the tributaries, we dam them and then operate the flow as we want. Right now, if the flood of 2012, most of the flooding water didn't come from there. So if we had that in 2012, the Benue Wing, the flooding would have been substantially reduced. That is one. The northern part of the country, further northern part of the country, the specific yield, water specific yield is very low if it is the Lake Chad area. Lake Chad contributes, the area around Lake Chad contributes only 7 billion cubic meters of water. About only 1.5 billion is sent out of Nigeria to Chad over the year. The other is consumed within. You see? But most of the rivers in this area don't have well-defined valleys. So if you tamper with the elbow of a flat river, sure, flood comes. So these are things there. Now, coming down further south, we have down south, most of our waters come from either the Cameroon mountains and spill over to Cross River and Akwa Ibom, or down from the massif in the west that spills to Ogunwashun and all this. And then the Anambra Imo has its origin also from the Udi Hills. But these areas are not areas that you can dam very easily if you're going to have dams there. So their floods are just normal because they send most of the water straight to the ocean. But the further north,
that's where the issue is.
Yeah, that's where the issue comes.
We'll come to that. But the phone lines are open. We have a first caller calling in from Abuja. Kenneth calling in. Hello, Kenneth. Okay. We'll keep the calls coming through. Right. The issue of damming. As he said, if more dams are put in, especially up north, what has been standing in the way of that?
Well, it's capital intensive. It's capital intensive. That's a major challenge, to do that because, as I rightly said, when you put a dam, you're able to regulate the flow. And
well, okay. So you see, sometimes when I hear about capital-intensive nature of projects, and I ask the same question. I said, compared to the benefits derivable from such investments, wouldn't it make sense to, over time, do them? Because I'm thinking...
We, as a country, I think we need to get it right this time around. Reason is well known. because we, along the line, the issue of inadequate resources will always be coming. There's no way we can run away from it. But however, I think the priority must now be on developing the water resources potential. Like in a very serious and advanced country, no nation will allow the type of fresh water that goes into the ocean, because these are the assets that we ordinarily we ought to tap. And if you go to this JICA report, has really given us areas we should have. But like we keep saying, but we must get our priority right.
Okay, let's try to take the calls again. From Abuja, another call coming in. Oh dear. Well, I hope it won't be one of those nights challenges with the with the telephone system. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, these competing needs, sometimes I think government has to, or we have to put our heads together. Competing needs. A dam is not for a single purpose. If you have a dam for multi-purpose, you're already solving several needs. If it's for hydropower, water supply, and irrigation, you're tackling agriculture, power supply, and also water supply, which also dovetails to sanitation. So I think if we're going to talk about competing needs, let's aggregate those needs and see how we can put them in one project. We can solve 3 problems with a single dam. And then flood control. So I think we need to see which one can solve several problems at a time and invest on that.
Okay. Yes.
Yes. No, and also I think, as my colleague mentioned, priority is very important. When there are, it is capital intensive, as my colleague has mentioned. So what we really need to do is identify priorities. And in that context, for example, our colleagues in the African Development Bank, the World Bank, have been working around stable crop processing zones, how we can look at not only construction but rehabilitation of existing irrigation schemes. And I think that's very important to identify those areas where we can get the greatest return.
Earlier you talked about this government now having the correct policy in place as to now bring back the river basin development authorities into the mainstream of this scheme. But are there any forms of legislation that you've thought about? Within this period there was a lull as to help reposition the river basin development authorities.
I think the ministry, they have looked at all our laws and
water for them, for their irrigation. Believe you me, this food security is over in this town. Because you can't expect somebody, a farmer, not farming an acre, contributing money to fuel the generator to supply water for them for irrigation projects. So, but if the farmers can get water free, believe you me, before you know, not even the contribution to the food security, we will not have problems with the food in this township. That is my contribution.
All right. Well, thank you for calling in. Well, you had the back.
Yes. Just to add to what he said, what we do in managing the irrigation scheme is that the farmers pay for the water you supply to them, and then there's a program we're doing now, which the World Bank is financing, transforming irrigation, trimming, transforming irrigation. That was trying to give make the farmers to manage the irrigation scheme at a certain level. They have what they call Water Users Association that does the management at a particular level, and then they pay for the water that is supplied to them. Of course, the dam owners, the upstream of the scheme is managed by the dam owners. So like this problem that is highlighted now is taken care of because collectively the Water Users Association collects the rates from various
Yes, hello. If you're still with us, go right ahead.
Hello. Hello, good evening.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes, good evening. You sound a little bit low.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, but you're low, but just go ahead and we'll see if we can boost the volume here.
Good evening. Oh, good evening. My name is Sanusi.
Right.
Just to make a little contribution. Hello?
Yes, go ahead. I think that call there has been dropped. Just like to encourage viewers to keep the phone calls coming through. Yes, the line might not be too good, but we expect that it will improve. So we'd like to encourage you to try again, and we might get a clearer reception next time around you calling. But yes, returning to the cost of running these projects, and that's one of the issues here which farmers have to cope with. How do we get around this problem and lower the cost? Because that obviously is something that will affect the success rate of the scheme.
I was saying, actually, under the VCDP, in collaboration with the Ministry of Agriculture, our farmers are producing 5.5 metric tons per hectare of paddy rice. So really, then it becomes a business. The productivity has increased to the extent that farmers this year, especially with the bumper, are going to be making money. Then the whole issue about can they pay for these irrigation services, can the water user associations collect that money, becomes much easier to manage and handle. So I think what's very important is that this year we have an increase in production. Farmers are getting much better prices because of the issue of the devaluation of the naira. Actually, we are not importing rice. Therefore, actually, paddy prices have increased to about 130,000 naira per ton, which is double what farmers were getting during the last season. So we hope that with this increase in prices, with the increases in productivity, these services can be paid for by the farmers themselves, and that whole issue around sustainability also can be addressed.
Now, with this scheme that with this, renewed attention to it, what would we say is the level of impact on current yield?
On the yield?
Yes.
Yes, as I said, one of the nearest schemes we have here, we have a lot of people who have come in to partner with us to be able to improve on the yield. They want to develop agricultural service, agro service center, where they will provide soft loan, to the farmers, to be able to provide the inputs to the farmers. They will provide, agricultural extension services, improve seedlings, and so on and so forth, and also, some mechanized, some machineries for them to be able to do the agriculture. Then they will pay them at the end of the harvest, so that the farmers can get the best, and then to be able to pay at the end of the day. With the improved agricultural services, it's expected.
Dangote, he has engaged some of these graduates, and he provided them with all the improved seeds and fertilizers, and at the end of the day, he procured those products from them.
Let's link up with Lawal, who's calling in from Abuja here. Lawal, hello. Hello. Do we have Lawal on the line?
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Is it Lawa Musa? Hello, are you hearing me?
Yes, go on.
Lawan, yes. Lawan, but Lawa Musa.
Go on.
Okay, my contribution goes like that. In fact, yes, my contribution goes like that. This is my Oga with yellow cap. The didn't even identify all the dams that were available. We are here in Borno State. Oh, the field workers has not come to our aid. We are eager to make sure that we fill this country with so many rights and other things. We have young boys.
Was developed back in the 80s, and about 50,000 hectares of surface irrigation scheme was developed, and of course the insurgency, affected it a lot, a lot of, but we have a private person who is coming in to look at the project with a view to put in a more efficient system, and then
for agricultural purposes. But the jerry bowl takes the water and it sinks. Now, some time ago, I tried to put the cost of doing such a job and depositing water to go into the ground. Will water remain there for irrigation? Can we use it extensively for irrigation? That's one. The possibility is there that we can do that, because some of the waters coming through the Sambisa forest. It's a heavily resourceful environment, the Sambisa forest. They come through Yetsaram, Ngada, and some of these, and we have a Halau Dam situated there. But the Jere Bowl, if we can transfer some water into that, it can revamp that. So it is a project we've been giving. We wanted to go to the site a few weeks ago, but we want not to go yet.
Okay, still.
We want to see how
risky situation.
Government is okay. Doing something.
All right, Kayode from Enugu, let's hear what you have to say. Hello. Hello, Kayode.
Yes. Good evening, the panelists.
Yes, good evening.
I really appreciate every discussion that has been thrown up. Hello, sir.
Yes, go on.
Yes, I appreciate irrigation. Whereas we have people, indigenous people, who can embrace this. So the role the government should do is to play a catalytic role by way of providing this infrastructure, the drip irrigation. You pattern the land. This fellow takes an hectare. This fellow takes this. Like the other discussion said, that the ABRA system is also good. It will attract small businesses. It will attract low-income earners to collect money to set up processing plants to process those things that are produced in large scale. From there, you have other off-takers that will stock the factory. I think we should go beyond. I'm 64 years old. I've witnessed quite a number of schemes, beautiful schemes, well crafted, but badly implemented. Those your target group must be part and parcel of the planning. That is how to catch them. That's my contribution. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much, Coyote. I'm sure that our guests will respond to this very important issue about advocacy, which you have raised. But we'll take a short break here, and when we return, I guess we'll comment on your suggestions so far. So stay with us on NT Tuesday Live. We'll be back shortly.
Nigeria, the only country we can train with remarkable potentials to excel. Let us believe in ourselves and change our attitude for the sake of our country and generations unborn. Let us revive our cultural values, which are our essence as a nation. Let us renew the spirit of patriotism and hope in our dear country. Do not take or give bribe. Be punctual always. No more African time. We can't expect to be global citizens and operate on African time. Join the queue. Insist that people are attended to on a first-come basis, no matter who they are or where they come from.
Nigeria, good people, great nation.
Make you report any crooked person, object or wakajube movement to police and security agent demo.
The security of our nation now work for all of us, plus including me and you.
Nigeria, Make we unite against terrorism. Now, Federal Minister of Information and Culture bring on this message.
What's important is that there are traditional dry season states like Kebbi, Zamfara, Jigawa. So they're traditional states where farmers know that in the dry season they can get higher yield. For example, with good extension, with good service delivery, farmers can get 5.5 tons per hectare, but in dry season they can get 6.5 tons per hectare. And this issue about advocacy, as Kayode was mentioning, in the traditional dry season states, farmers that can make money will start adopting more farmers, and we've seen that in these states. What's also interesting and critical is that in some of these other states, for example, in Benue, Anambra, farmers can adopt it, and what we need is pilot sites, for example, to show that dry season agriculture works. Some of the shallow tube wells, some of these activities that the FED projects are promoting are very important. And then this issue about comparative advantage. What's very important is that every state, every locality chooses its key value chains, which ones have better markets, which have a food security orientation, and I think
get out of the present situation we find ourselves, and with the coming of the private sector in some of our projects, I think we are getting some of these things right, and we intend to improve on it.
Okay, let's go back to the phones now. From Akwa Ibom, we have Insang who's calling in. Hello. Hello, from Akwa Ibom.
Hello, good evening,
yes.
Sir.
Good evening.
Hello, good evening, sir.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, sir. Yes. Are you hearing me, sir?
Yes, we are.
I'm grateful about the program. Yeah. I say I'm grateful about the program. Because in years we were talking about oil, but now we have now been discussing about the issue of but now we have been discussing about farm, which is one of our basics in our community.
Mentioned when we started, the Honorable Minister immediately came in. The first thing he did was to reposition the river basin, set up a committee to reposition the river basin. And a lot of repositioning has commenced, like the graduate employment scheme has been flagged off in about 7 of the river basin. And we are talking of even in using this Songhai model. All the MDs of river basin, they were sent to Port Novo to look at that scheme. And that scheme is now going to take place in all the senatorial districts of this country, whereby an integrated farming will be done. And we have even started in some of our schemes. There are some of our schemes where graduates, they have taken possession of some of these activities, like aquaculture. They have talk of this project Campe. The graduates, they are the one involved in this aquaculture, and they are producing a lot of fish there. And fortunately, during the flag off ceremony, one of even the graduate farmers said after he has paid all the inputs, he's able to realize about 10 million.
I was bringing fingerlings and just putting in the reservoir, just like hobby. And if you go to that dam today, it's one of the most resourceful dams in terms of fishing, but nobody is fishing. Though there was an accident sometime, the structure of the spillway was such that one of the men fishing was almost sucked into this thing. But fishing today is something that we have to go into. The Gurara Dam that is constructed specifically for water supply in this place, to Abuja, has a lot of fish. When we finish this dam, some people from far, not in the locality, came to fish there, and there was a fight. The people in the neighborhood were saying, "Wow, why should somebody from, And so the minister told them, look, it is free for all of you. You can fish. If you don't have the talent, let them teach you. You can fish." In our dams today, we have a lot of fish, and the dams are many and big. So, apart from the fishery that we do right in the house, I think the government can encourage cage farming, fish farming, and also try to put some of the fingerlings into our lakes, because they'll be there. They won't go anywhere. Anybody who goes to fish there will sell, and will sell to still for consumption in Nigeria. I think that's an aspect that we have enough water stored for this. We must take advantage of that.
Tends to, convert the youth into what is happening right now, so that the teeming youth, most especially from where, where I was serving before they posted me to Abuja, most of them, I realized that most of them are into agriculture. But at the same time, this initiative has not gone to those areas, and those youths are almost, out of what is happening right now. So I think if the youths are put into consideration in this initiative, and plans are put in place to make sure that you co-opt them, so that it's not necessarily looking at the comparative advantage based on the location where irrigation thrives, but considering the people that will be highly productive in the program. You understand? So that the politics will not be enthroned in this initiative. It's a beautiful initiative. I'm in love with it. But my take is that the youth should be a part of this program, and we should look out for the teeming youth that are unemployed, who are ready and have passion for agriculture, because they are the ones that can confidently put in their best and make sure that whatever the essence of this initiative does not go down like that. Thank you so much, and God bless Nigeria.
All right, thank you. Okay, some suggestions here about how to go it and to involve the youth here. You've already talked about the number of graduates who are going to benefit from this scheme. Now, outside that group.
Yes, on the average, you can get about 6. The advantage we have in the Songhai model that is being adopted to be replicated in all the districts in the country.
Yes.
May I just to respond also to Emmanuel's question? I think what's important with the youth target group is we have graduates and non-graduates. Many youth do not have access to land. And that's very important, that there is a way to either get land titles or state governments give them a reasonable tenure to that land so that they can start with something. And what's another aspect for youth, just with regard
to Operation Feed the Nation, New Revolution, you have heard about it. But why can't we incorporate our students right from the grassroots, from the primary school level?
Can we just turn up the volume a bit?
Because when they receive part of this knowledge from the primary school level to the secondary school level, not until they finish when they don't have anything about it. Honestly, it's a very good program, because I myself am talking. I'm a son of a farmer that doesn't know anything. But up to now, this irrigation method, we use this working can, tobacco, very happy to be a tobacco farmer. And up to now, that's what I'm enjoying. That's why the fact I'm well read or whatever. We do, it's well, most people on this kind of thing. So let's train these people, our children, right from the grassroots. I think it can work.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. This is Kayode from Oshun. Now, I'd like us to look at, yes, we provide the schemes, and then please, but let's look at the inputs now. Engineer Folayo.
The input is the Federal Ministry of Agric. They are the one responsible for the input. And that's why the Ministry of Water Resources and Agric, they have signed an MOU. So, and the two ministries were working together to get the improved seeds, fertilizer, to some of our schemes. That's on some of our irrigation schemes. So, and that collaboration is seriously working now. And with that, I believe, we are going to, there will be improvement in the quantum of products we're bringing out.
Speaking about collaboration, let's look at the level of it between the Water Institute and the river basins.
Well, this is a question actually I've been waiting for. It's a research institute as well as a training institute. Now, when we talk about the youth and the like drip irrigation, now these young engineers in the institute now say, yeah, excuse me, sir, I don't think these farmers or this can keep coming and turning this all the time. Why don't you have a windmill, a small propeller? Because in the dry season, the wind is very high. So they now designed one, and they put it and connected to this. When the wind blows in the night, it turns, and it takes water out and irrigates.
All right.
This is ongoing now.
Okay, we'll ask you to pause. We'll return to it so you can tell us the rest of it. Lagos, we go to Lagos. We have Kenneth on the line from Lagos. Hello, Kenneth.
Hello, Mr. Siren. Good evening.
Evening.
Yeah. I listened to your panelist, Mr. Siren. Very interesting to all what you've been saying. Apart from the problem of having, finance, access to finance for, for our youth, the young men, in Nigeria, in cities. And then, but one of the main things is not just about money itself. It's sincerity of purpose. If these youth, if some of them get the money, the sincerity of purpose is going into the farming sector itself, fisheries, and then you have those on land, the agriculture, the rice production we are talking about, that I learned how much it's in Nigeria spend in importing rice into this country every month, certain amount of money. Now, if they can go into in the southern part of the country, and of course around the Niger basin, some of those states, Taraba and other states that they can produce rice, give some money to some of these youth, involve the mosque, the churches, faith-based organizations who can be able to monitor this because they need monitoring, effective monitoring. And then at the same time, some of the youth in the cities, early in the morning, like in Holland and in some European countries, they do that. Say you see the youth early in the morning, they drive from the cities with buses from trains. Okay, in our own country, they can go by buses and then, with the cars. From 4 to 6 in the morning, they take youth to the villages to work, even in factories there. The government can kind of, subsidize those, in the interim, subsidize those generators that they are going to be using, for the plants, for the engine.
From but let's return to Dr. Adanu, who's talking about what the young engineers in his institute have been able to fabricate as to push forward irrigation.
So, and this is what they want to do. We have an irrigation scheme in the institute. We call it a small irrigation program. All the kinds of irrigation activities, the drip, sprinkler, the open, we have it. So we have plots. Then we irrigate, and then take different kinds of crops and irrigate. And we record the amount of water required for each one of them. So at the end of the year, we tell you the water demand. You know, we know that Chad Basin and Hadija Jamari have been producing wheat in this country for some time. They've never done it down a bit southwards. So we're starting wheat, because last week we discussed it. That we should have a small wheat farm, however small it is. Let's monitor the water demand, the temperature requirement, the soil type in Kaduna. And so whatever will come out with, we now publicize, so that we can also have the culture of cultivating wheat, just as Engineer Ofio was talking of the Songhai farm. Different kinds of crops in different parts of the country. If you take the temperature, just the weather and everything, you may be able to. So we're trying to see what we can produce that are not customarily done in certain environments. So wheat is the new one we're trying to do in Kaduna, right in the institute, not outside.
Okay.
We do it there.
All right, we'll return to you. There's some interesting information there which we got. But let's go to Owerri. We have Suleiman Farouk calling in from Owerri. Hello, Suleiman.
Hello, sir.
Yes, hello.
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 Hello. Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Hello. Yeah, good morning, sir.
Yeah, morning.
Sir, hello. Yeah, please, I want to make a kind of contribution. Yeah, please, in this irrigation, there's surface irrigation, drip irrigation, and sprinkler irrigation. But most of our farmers, they only know about surface irrigation. And the other types of irrigation, I don't know, it took a lot of money or funds to set it in place. Yeah, so why not the government or any private sector should at least bring those what they call them, those irrigation, since they save enough water than the surface irrigation. So using surface irrigation, it took much more water, as in it spends much more water.
Like I said, you know, we are looking at the possibility of using a more efficient system. We have a new sprinkler system that is considered to be very good, you know, the center pivot system, you know, and we are also trying to make it to work with solar energy. In fact, you know, we discovered that as much as 50 hectares of land can be irrigated with one single center pivot powered by solar energy. Solar energy, you know, cuts off the problem of operating costs, and then the center pivot is a lot better than the older sprinkler system we're using. So we are gradually getting there, you know, in terms of, and it's a lot cheaper to do a sprinkler system than surface, you know, irrigation in terms of cost. So, you know, to attain the 100,000 hectares of irrigated agriculture I mentioned earlier within the next 4 years, you know, we're also thinking in this direction that we're going to have a mix of, you know, where it is possible, we'll introduce a sprinkler system, and where we look at that people there can run it, and most especially now that we're trying to transform our system so that people can own it, you know, when we complete the infrastructure, so that somebody will own it and then maintain it the way he maintains his things.
All right.
Yes, but the challenge before us is that the sprinkler or the pressurized irrigation system we are talking about, we are not manufacturing all these components in Nigeria. So, and that's where we need the private people to come and set up those companies for those equipment. And that's why our traditional surface irrigation is still although it's not efficient, but it's still the only system that is sustainable as of now, until we get private people coming to come and set up the factories to manufacture all those things. I think it's still a challenge to us.
Yes. Well, one is not very efficient, the other is efficient, but again, now you have to deal with the issue of bringing and importing, and in an era where you have, as you would say, competing demands. So which would be more cost-effective now? To continue to use a system that is not very efficient in the absence of... so what is standing in the way of encouraging or partnering with the private sector to set up companies that can manufacture these sprinklers here?
Yes, I tried to discuss with some people. It's like a cycle, you know, because if you don't have enough people using the pressurized system, you won't have, you know, the person setting up the factory.
You won't have the market for it.
You will have the market. So they were telling me that, first of all, we have to get people to be interested. We have to introduce it in a system so that if they have the markets, they can come and set it up. And then I believe that there's a lot of prospect in that direction. Because if we transform
better, would serve that better.
Yeah, it's one of the things we are doing right now. But we all know here that rice takes about 7,500 cubic meters per hectare. Wheat takes about half of that, maybe 4,000 to 5,000 cubic meters. So, in a region where you are not very sure of water, the water availability, it is rather you have more of wheat than rice.
So even if traditionally that's a region where you might not, you know, think that wheat should be grown.
To grow. So that's one of the things we are doing right now. The water demand for each crop and the kind of water required and the kind of irrigation, because we have 3 of them. Getting the same supply, but gauged. So we measure the quantity of water we use for each one of them. Because the institute has a good weather, a meteorological center that can tell us the weather condition all the time. So we can tell you, with this humidity and this evaporation, we can tell you. So let's finish this cropping first. We may have something to bring to you here to show the nation.
All right, we'll look forward to that. But as we begin to round off from this program, we'll have to go back to a basic point here, which has to do with what had been talked about earlier on, the access to land. Now, we've been talking about the irrigation systems and how we can reintroduce that and make sure that you have more yield during the dry season. But the basic question is still the access, which is pretty challenging. What do you suggest can be done about this?
Well, for the private investors, their interest is on what is coming out, because they have a need for the agricultural produce. So what they do mostly is to make, you know, they will provide all the services for the farmers. The people who are doing the farming are the actual owners of the land. They will provide all the services for them, you know, the inputs, the extension services. If they require mechanization, they do that for them. Then they will buy up the products. And of course, you know, the services they provided for will be paid for. So in that way, the people who are, you know, the owners of the land are the ones who are utilizing the land. But then they have value for what they produce, because whatever they produce is guaranteed that it will be bought by the companies or by the investors. So that is one way of overcoming the challenge. But at the same time, in the ministry too, we have some land that were acquired and compensations were paid for. In that case, we don't have this challenge of the original owners, because the land were acquired for and developed by government. So we now have people who are utilizing the land.
Yes.
Just to corroborate on what the director was saying, I think land is really very much in an area where the state governments can play a role, because land is in their domain. we need to encourage that state government.
Owners of the land, what they are interested in is to get busy. And the private sector coming in, they are only about their own business. And as long as the owners of this farm, they are outgrowers, it will solve that problem. Because the private people will come in, provide all the necessary inputs. And at the end of the day, they will buy all the produce from these people as their own raw material to run their own factories. At the end of the day, it will be a win-win situation, because the communities will be fully engaged in the farm, and the private sector coming in will have, they are the one who provide all the inputs. They will get the raw material for their own company, and then it will even boost agricultural activities, and that's the model we are talking about now. And with that, we believe that everybody will be fully engaged. The private people, they will be ready to come into such a scheme. The communities will also be happy receiving them within their own locality.
Yeah, just one statement. The local, substantially today, our agricultural produce is provided by subsistence farmers who have not organized yet into these major things we are discussing. And they control a substantial part of the 3.14 million hectares of arable land. They are not in groups that you can put together. They have small holdings all over the place. What are we going to do for them? It's very important. You can improve, because before we gather all of them to a point to have a major and then private sectors coming, some of them are not relocatable. So what do we do for them? Because for now, they are still providing 60-65% of the farm produce we are using today. We must consider these people. Apart from the graduate farmers that you want to put somewhere, these people are still very important. And that's why we decided to do certain, make things easy for them, the fabrications we are doing. For these people who are now providing the country with the food we need. So I think while we are concentrating on this, the federal government also should be thinking about these people who you cannot relocate to put to farms, and also make sure that their productivity is high. Okay. And I think we have to go to that micro level too.
All right. Okay. Well, I suppose there are so many other aspects where we could look at, and I'm sure that we could still spend the rest of the night or the early hours of the morning talking about this, but at some point we have to leave it off, and hope that some other time we'll revisit the issue of irrigation, developing irrigation, create jobs, and for food security. For this program, we'll have to say thank you to all our guests who have been here. Let me say a big thank you to Okechukwu Ofi,